give to his ministry, I can tell you it is a tremendous investment. As he said, I don't know if he said it this way here, but he's told us several times, every time he leaves home, he kisses his wife goodbye, his kids kiss him goodbye, and they know it could be the last time they see him. Definitely if they catch him smuggling the Bibles, he definitely knows that they will shoot him right in the side of the head and kill him on the spot, because you're not allowed to do that to the Islamic people. So, brother, it's wonderful to reconnect with you after 21 years. Incredible, incredible, incredible. Okay, we still have some time. I told you last week that I was going to do some teaching on depression. And last week I taught upon anxiety and worry. And I showed you from Matthew 6 and Philippians chapter 4 that anxiety and worry are often caused by sin. And because they're caused by sin, not always, some worry is good, some anxiety is good, but many times the Bible clearly teaches us they're caused by sin. And because they're caused by sin, Jesus died to pay for those sins, but he also died to cleanse us from those sins. If you're one who gets anxious, you worry a lot about things that most people would not be anxious about, they wouldn't worry about, I can tell you that Jesus promises you that if you turn to him and you do what he commands you to do and you continue to do it, he will give you the power to overcome anxiety and worry. Then I told you that I was going to teach upon depression today. So I'm going to jump into the middle of my sermon right now. We were going to look at Genesis chapter 4, but now we're going to begin looking at the life of David. And I want you, if you have your Bibles, to turn with me to 2 Samuel chapter 11. 2 Samuel chapter 11. So I'm going to jump ahead right here. In 2 Samuel chapter 11, we are given a very clear example of how depression is caused by departing from the Lord. And we're given this example to us concerning King David. And I remind you that King David, the last statement made about him in all the Bible, is found in Acts chapter 13. And there we are told that David was a man after God's own heart. But we have a clear example in his life, beginning in 2 Samuel chapter 11, of when he departed from the Lord. And because he departed from the Lord, he went into a severe state of depression that God did not relieve from him until he came back to the Lord, confessed his sins, forsook his sins, and began to seek the Lord righteously again about a year later. So I want to share this text with you. Follow as I begin reading in 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. In the spring, at the time when kings go off to war and they lead their nation off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites. So this is who they're going to be fighting against, the Ammonites. And they besieged Rabbah. But David remained in Jerusalem. So he sends his army out. He does not lead them. It's been David's general practice to lead his men in war. Look at verse 2. One evening, David got up from his bed, and he walked around on the roof of his palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man returns to David, and he says this to David: "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Not going to go into this in length to save some time, but by examining other passages of Scripture nearby, we find out that Uriah the Hittite was a close friend of David's. He loved David. Verse 4, then David sent messengers after the single individual comes back and tells him that she's Bathsheba and she's married. She's the wife of Uriah the Hittite. I do want to pause here and say this, though. In the New Testament, we are told in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 that anytime a Christian undergoes temptation to sin, anytime, we're told this: God is faithful, right in the verse. God is faithful. He will always make a way of escape so that the Christian who's being tempted does not have to succumb to the temptation. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I think it's verse 22 or 23. I could be wrong on that, but I know it's in chapter 10. This was David's where God, right here, when this man comes back and tells him, she's the wife of Uriah. This is God being faithful to David. The minute David heard she's married, David shouldn't have succumbed to the temptation. Walks up on the roof of his palace. He sees this beautiful woman. She's bathing. She's doubtless naked. And he sees her. Now, in the Old Testament, the kings often married multiple women. Wasn't God's ideal? Wasn't his will from Genesis chapter 2 at the outset of creation? But it was true of the kings. They did it. David, the minute he heard she is the wife of Uriah, he's my friend. Secondly, or firstly, actually, she's married, and secondly, he's my friend. He should have turned around and walked away. But the temptation is great to him. Verse 4, then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, not knowing what he wants, but the messengers went to get her to follow them. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. Some time passes, and verse 5 tells us this. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, I am pregnant. This begins a major problem that's going to last for a year in David's life before it comes to his attention. And then it's going to last for the rest of his life. He's never going to rise above this situation totally. His whole family is going to pay a serious price. So David's sins in these 5 verses were at least twofold. He lusts after another man's wife, Bathsheba. Could add another one here. He betrays a close friend who is very loyal to him. But the second one, he gives in to the internal sin of the heart. And you will remember from Mark chapter 7, every sin, every external sin that we commit first begins down here in the immaterial part of man. Look for it if that's new information to you. When you're tempted to sin, ask yourself, why am I tempted? Where is this coming from? Ultimately, you will realize it's coming from inside me. I wasn't looking for this temptation, but it's rising up within me. So in Mark chapter 7, you'll recall that Jesus says, "For it is out of men's hearts that sin arises." And the very first thing that he mentions is sinful thoughts before he gives a whole list in that chapter. Now there's 4 more serious sins that King David did that we're not told in these first 5 verses. But we're given the information in verses 6 through 26, the rest of this chapter. So for sake of time this morning, I knew I would be short on time. I don't want to read through, and I didn't plan to read through, the rest of the entire chapter. But I want to sum up the 4 more sins that David committed. Here they are. After David discovers that he has impregnated this wife of another man, a friend, David attempts to make it appear that the child to be born belonged to Uriah. He follows this sin up with trying to pass along some deceit that will reach the whole public of Israel. So he attempts to make it appear that the child to be born belonged to Uriah, Bathsheba's husband. David calls Uriah home from the battle that he had sent the whole nation out to fight. You read this in the rest of 2 Samuel 11 again. He calls Uriah home from the battle, thinking that Uriah will sleep with his wife. And then Uriah will think himself, I slept with my wife, she's pregnant, I'm the father. But Uriah refuses when he comes to David, who's his king and friend. He refuses to sleep with Bathsheba. Real quickly, he says to David, when David tells him to go home, since you're home and sleep with your wife, you've been away from her for a while. He says to David, I can't go be with my wife. My friends, our army's out fighting, and my responsibility is to be there fighting. And he refused to go home for several nights. Secondly, King David, because he knew Uriah had not gone home and wouldn't do it, King David got Uriah drunk, we're told, in the rest of the verses, thinking that he would then go home and sleep with his wife Bathsheba. But Uriah again slept elsewhere that night, verses 12 and 13 tell us. The 5th one, after the first 2 I gave you on a previous slide, King David sent a letter to Joab, the platoon commander of David's army, the Israeli army. instructing him to put Uriah on the front line of battle so that he would be killed. So his adultery that sprung up in his heart is now reaching the stage of, to cover my sin, I'm going to put him on the front line of battle, and I will send a kingly message to Joab and say, put him on the front line so that he will be killed. Then all of Israel will think he got her pregnant before he went to war, and David knows that he intends to take her as his own wife. And then lastly, David very hard-heartedly, callously, he tells Joab, his platoon commander, to not grieve over the loss of Uriah. Because he says this to Joab, right in the text, you can go on and read it, because it's normal for people in war to get killed. So don't worry about it, Joab. He was just doing what people do when they fight in war. Don't give Joab a second thought. I remind you of this. The Bible tells us that David was a man after God's own heart. I've thought about this thousands of times without any exaggeration in what I'm telling you. I've thought about many times. If David can fall, any Christian man or woman can fall. Because David was a man after God's own heart. And he experienced a time where sin rose up from his immaterial part. And we're going to see in a few minutes, it travels through his mind, and he succumbs to the temptation. And from this time on, it ruins the rest of his life, as we're about to see. Now, here's more to this story that God wants us to know. The last sentence in chapter 11, verse 27, closes by saying these 9 words. Look at them. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord. The last statement before God acts to reveal David's sin, the last comment in this chapter comes from God himself. The thing David had done displeased the Lord. Now here's more to the story that we also need to know, and again, to save time, I'm not going to read the next chapter. I didn't plan to, because I knew that my dear brother would be sharing some about his ministry. But listen to me, and I will read it to you, what I've typed out. I knew it would go faster this way. Listen closely. After Uriah is killed, David takes Bathsheba into his house, and she becomes his wife. The Bible tells us that David loved her. But behind this love for her was also the desire to cover his sin and make it appear that he married a widowed woman. That's what's really behind him taking her into his house. He does love her. The scriptures tell us that. He loves her. But he knows the quicker he gets her into his house, the quicker he gets Uriah killed, he can take her into his house, and nobody's going to know the extent of his sin. When we study chapters in 2 Samuel, we discover that this cover-up goes on for about a year. And remember, before it's exposed, the child is born. Bathsheba gives birth to this child. That's typically 9 months. We know it goes on for at least a year. No human being in Israel knew the true situation except for King David and Bathsheba. They both think that they are in the clear with the secret that is just between the two of them. But God also knows. Then God reveals the sin of David and Bathsheba after about a year to a prophet by the name of Nathan. You can read all this in 2 Samuel. Go home and read it. It'll be better than me trying to get you understanding it. And God sends Nathan to confront David. This event is recorded in 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 1 through 7. I'm going to read Nathan's confrontation, face-to-face confrontation with King David. Remember, David's king. David could have his head chopped off right on the spot by his armed guards. But he knows that Nathan is a man of God. And when he comes to him, he listens to him. He and David have been close friends as well when you read 2 Samuel. David has loved Nathan because David has been a man after God's own heart. Nathan is the preacher in Israel, one of the preachers. He's a prophet. David loves it because he loves the God that David has loved. In 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 1 through 7, here's what we read. 1 year after, at least a year after the sin of David with Bathsheba. Here's what we read. The Lord sent Nathan to David. And when the Lord sends him, he's already revealed it to Nathan. Let me pause here. Let me just remind you this. Remember what we're told about prophets in Acts chapter 2. We're told this about David in Acts chapter 2. Here's the exact words in Acts 2 on the day of Pentecost when Peter's standing and 3,000 come to Christ, and he's telling them, this Messiah that you rejected 50 days earlier on Passover when you all cried out, crucify him, crucify him. This Messiah is risen from the dead, and it was prophesied in the Old Testament. And then Peter quotes a prophecy of David in the Old Testament. And he says, David, being a prophet, foreseeing what was ahead, spoke about the resurrection of the Messiah. It's how close David had been to the Lord. He was not only a king, but he was a prophet. So prophets, listen to me right here so you understand this. Prophets could not only foresee the future, but there were times that God allowed them to foresee the past, some of them even before they were born. He did that with Moses. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Moses lived 1,500 years before Jesus came to the earth. Creation was thousands of years before that. And Moses writes Genesis and tells us about creation. You know how he did it accurately? He was a prophet. He's called a prophet in Deuteronomy 18. And God allowed him to look back and write with absolute accuracy how this world came into existence. So when Jesus is here on the earth, you know what he does many, many, many times? He quotes the book of Genesis. When he's talking about marriage in Matthew 19, he quotes, haven't you read that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? You know who wrote that? Moses wrote that. How did he get that information when he wasn't even alive? God gave it to him and allowed him to look clear back to the beginning of time and see how this world came into existence. And he wrote it down exactly how it all happened. So, in verse 1, the Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to David, he said, now listen to me right here because I'm going to explain this parable as I go through it to save some time. He said this, there were two men in a certain town. The two men represent David and Uriah. They live in the same town. They live in Jerusalem. One was rich, that's David. Do I have that up there? Okay, you can see it. One was rich, David, and the other was poor, Uriah. Look at verse 2. The rich man, David, had a very large number of sheep and cattle. He was very rich. Verse 3. But the poor man, meaning Uriah, David doesn't know this yet, as Nathan is saying this to him, the poor man, Uriah, had nothing except one little ewe lamb. Ewe lamb is a female lamb. He had one little female lamb he had bought. She had probably been a slave, and he bought her. Notice what we're told. He raised her. He raised her. It grew up with him. This ewe lamb grew up with him. Grew up with his children. It shared his food. The ewe lamb, representing Bathsheba, drank from his cup, and she even slept in his arms. This ewe lamb was like a daughter to him. You men who've had daughters, you know how your hearts are just drawn to your daughter. Probably more so than your sons, because you think your sons can take care of themselves, and you worry so much about your daughters. So here we're told it was like a daughter. His wife was like a daughter to him, the way he loved her and took care of her. Look at verse 4. Please give me your attention here. Now a traveler came to the rich man. The traveler is intended in this parable to picture a thought that passed through his mind. He saw her bathing. She's naked. I want her. The traveler passes through his mind a sinful thought. Where does it come from? Jesus told us in Mark 7. It comes from the immaterial part of man that cannot be investigated through an X-ray, an MRI, through anything. Only Jesus can look at the heart and see what's there. Now a traveler, a thought came to the rich man, to David. But the rich man refrained from taking. He has this thought, I want this woman. David doesn't know that Nathan's describing what happened to him at this point. But the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler. This thought that went through his mind, he's rich, he could have taken whatever he wanted and prepared a meal to satisfy this sinful thought. To prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, Nathan tells him, he took the ewe lamb. He took the female. He took her that belonged to the poor man, that belonged to Uriah, and prepared it for the traveler that had come to him, for the thoughts that had gone through his mind when he saw her bathing on the top of the roof. Look at David's response. David burned with anger against the man that Nathan has just described. And he said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He knows it was a wicked deed. But he doesn't know that Nathan is describing him and what he just did a year earlier. David continues on, he must pay for that lamb 4 times over. You know the rest of Samuel? David lost 4 sons as a result of this. God took 4 of his sons away from him. Exactly what David said should happen. God did it. God let him set his own punishment. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and he had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, very boldly, I'm sure looking him right in the eye, he said, you are the man. So there's this year between David doing it and David realizing that God has exposed his sin. What was that year like for David? We're told. In Psalm 51, after Nathan came to David, Nathan's going to tell us in several ways that all the joy of the Lord left him through that year. That he became severely depressed. I'm going to say more about depression and joy and the opposite of depression next Sunday. I didn't have time this morning. David tells us very clearly his life was miserable during that year. I want to read it. I'll probably refer to it next week, but to save some time, I'll read it. Notice what we're told. David writes this when Nathan comes and tells him, you're the man. You're the man who committed this sinful deed. And David is describing what's happened in his life in the interim between him committing the sin, it springing up from his heart and him carrying it out, and Nathan coming to him. He says this as he's crying out to God now. His sin has been exposed. He says, have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. I've been thinking about it, he's saying, day and night since I did it. Against you, you only, have I sinned. Notice how many times he uses the pronouns my, me, I, as you read through this. I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you, you only have I sinned and done what was evil in your sight. So you are right in your verdict against me, and you're justified when you judge me. Surely I was sinful at birth. He's acknowledging the sin nature that lives in him. Sinful from the time my mother conceived me. Even in the womb, I was sinful, he's saying. Yet you desired faithfulness even in the womb. He's saying from conception, you desired faithfulness from all your creation, that they would be faithful to your commands. But he's just said in verse 5, I'm sinful from birth, sinful from the time the sperm met the egg in my mother. You taught me wisdom in that secret place. He's talking about the immaterial part of man, the secret place. Cleanse me with hyssop. That was used to put on the doors when God said, I'm sending the death angel to go through the land of Israel and kill the firstborn. They put it on the doors. It was a sign of spiritual cleansing. David is crying out to God, and he's saying, you're exactly right. I've committed a great, great sin. Cleanse me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. Look at verse 8. After a year, he says this, let me hear joy and gladness. He's crying out to God, and he's saying, God, for this whole past year, I've not had joy and gladness. I've not had it. Let me hear it again. Put within me joy and gladness. This is the reason I have such a hard time with Christians that show no joy in the Lord when you're around them. It really troubles me because it makes me think, what sin is in their life? What sin is there that they don't get excited about the things of the Lord? So he says here, let me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones you've crushed rejoice, my bones, my skeleton within me. Let them rejoice. Hide your face from my sins and blot out all my iniquity. Create in me a pure heart, O God. That's what I need done to me, so I don't carry out these sins that come to me as travelers in my mind. Create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Notice this. Do not cast me away from your presence or take your Holy Spirit from me. Let me just say, in the New Testament, once you're given the Holy Spirit, he's never taken away from a Christian. But hear me out. The New Testament clearly says we can quench the Spirit. We can water him down and hold him down. And we're told don't put out the fire of the Spirit. We can do that through sin to where he's not powerfully working in us because we have unconfessed, not forsaken sin that we know is wrong, and we're not willing to come to Christ and ask for cleansing and then seek his help to overcome those sins. Look at verse 12. Restore to me the joy of your salvation. You hear what he's saying? He's saying, God, the reason I've not had joy for the last year, I need you to restore it. This is not something that I build up within myself. I need you to restore the joy of your salvation. You have to give it to me again because I haven't had it since I committed this sin and I haven't repented of it. And grant me a willing spirit to sustain me. Then he says this to the Lord in his prayer. Then I will teach, if you'll do these things for me and you'll restore me, I will teach others who transgressed your ways, so that sinners will turn back to you. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed, O God, you who are God my Savior, and my tongue will sing. My tongue is going to sing of your righteousness. Verse 15 through 17, and we're done. Open my lips, Lord, and my mouth will declare your praise. These are all things he wasn't doing through that year. You do not delight in sacrifice, or I would bring it. You do not take pleasure in burnt offerings. My sacrifice, O God, to you is a broken spirit. I'm broken over my sin. A broken and a contrite heart, that inner being of man that controls the feelings, the emotions, even the thoughts like the travelers that go through your mind. A broken and contrite heart, you, God, will not despise. We're not going to close in singing this morning, but I do want to tell you this as we close. If you're a Christian and you don't have any joy in your life, I would tell you this. I'll tell you more things next week. Here's what I would say to you. The Bible clearly teaches the absence of joy, happiness in the Lord, contentment in the Lord, can often be caused by unconfessed, unrepentant sin. We see that from the life of David. We see it at other places too that I'll show next week, Lord willing. I would encourage you, because there's nothing that brings more satisfaction than the joy of the Lord. After the people of Israel had come back from their exile and they were rebuilding the walls in Jerusalem, they're told in Nehemiah, the joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Your emotions are very important to God. Your feelings are very important. And they can be, not always, perhaps, but they can be a strong indicator to us. Something's wrong in my life. Are you speaking to me, Lord? Are you talking to me? Is there unconfessed sin in my life that I can confess? Ask you to cleanse me and get it out of my life. God loves to do that through the person of Jesus Christ and what Christ has done for us. God, thank you for this text. Lord, I pray you would keep it strong in our minds. I pray, Lord, that we would learn from it. We would understand how these texts tie together in the life of David. Oh God, what a godly man, but such an ungodly failure. But God, we can all think of ways and times we've sinned against you and you've cleansed us. Now, God, continue to make us holy. You tell us all through the pastoral epistles, your goal in saving us was to turn us into good people. And we learned from elsewhere in the scriptures, being good is obeying you. But God, you got to do it in us. We again carry the remnants of that Adamic nature. And God, they can be strong at times, but greater is he that's in you than he that's in the world. So make us holy, we pray. Be with my brothers and sisters here, I pray, God. I thank you, Lord, for the growth of all of us in your Son. God, continue to do it. I pray that you would continue to do it. In your holy name, amen. Thank you.